On the morning of February the 19th, 2026, something happened that had no precedent in the history of the modern British monarchy. A sitting king's brother was arrested. Not in a history book. Not in another century. On a cold Thursday morning in Norfolk, on the grounds of the Sandringham estate, police cars pulled up. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, once His Royal Highness the Duke of York, son of Queen Elizabeth, brother of the reigning king, was taken into custody. And critically, King Charles was not told in advance. Inside the palace, in the hours that followed, something shifted. Something that had been building quietly for months finally broke through the surface. So the question is this: what did Charles hand him? And why did it take this to make it happen? To understand what February 2026 meant, you have to rewind. King Charles III waited longer than any heir in British history to take the throne. 73 years old at his coronation in May 2023. Decades of preparation. And then, finally, the crown. But almost immediately, the weight began to accumulate. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed the king had been diagnosed with cancer. The specific form was not disclosed. Around the same time, Princess Catherine announced her own cancer diagnosis. Two of the monarchy's most prominent figures, both retreating from public life simultaneously. It was, by any measure, an extraordinary moment. And it was in that vulnerability that William began quietly expanding his role. The other layer of context is older and darker. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had been in slow, grinding disgrace for years. His friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein had been publicly known since at least 2008. His catastrophic BBC Newsnight interview in 2019, where he appeared unable to account for his whereabouts or show any empathy for Epstein's victims, became one of the most damaging moments in modern royal history. By January 2022, he had been stripped of his military titles and royal patronages. A civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre was settled out of court. By late 2025, he lost the remainder of his royal titles entirely. He was now simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, private citizen. But the story, it turned out, was far from over. In early 2026, the United States Department of Justice released over 3 million documents connected to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Among those materials, according to reports from NBC News and PBS NewsHour, were emails allegedly linked to accounts labeled The Duke and The Invisible Man. Their precise contents remain unconfirmed by official sources, but their existence landed on the desks of Metropolitan Police investigators in London. And the investigation that followed was not quiet. Andrew had only recently vacated the Royal Lodge in Windsor, his home for over 20 years, under sustained pressure from Charles. He had moved to the more modest Wood Farm on the Sandringham grounds, already diminished, but what was coming would diminish him still further. Inside the palace, the tension was spreading. Reports circulating in early March 2026, cited by outlets including Yahoo Entertainment, described Camilla as openly combative toward Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the fallout from Andrew's situation deepened. Whether that characterization is fully accurate remains unconfirmed by palace officials. But the atmosphere it suggested was significant. Meanwhile, royal author Russell Myers, whose book William and Catherine examined the prince's thinking, quoted sources suggesting William had been pushing for Andrew's removal for years, warning that he must be banished before the rot sets in. He had been right, and now events were proving it. And then something shifted. February the 19th, 2026. A Thursday. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. As reported by NBC News, PBS, and NPR, the allegation centered on whether he had shared confidential government information with Jeffrey Epstein during his years as the UK's special trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. He was driven to Aylsham Police Station in Norfolk, later released without charge, meaning no immediate prosecution, but no exoneration either. And the king had not been told it was coming. As reported by ITV News correspondent Chris Shipp, Charles was caught off guard. He subsequently issued a statement saying his family would continue in our duty and service to you all, expressing his deepest concern and stating that the law must take its course. It was measured, dignified, and, according to those watching closely, it was the statement of a man who had already, in some essential way, stepped back. Because while Charles composed those careful words, William was acting. A royal source quoted by reporter Rob Shooter described the Prince of Wales in striking terms. "William is not afraid to make hard calls," the source said. "And right now, that's exactly what the royal family needs." Another added, "Charles leads with his heart. William leads with strategy. He doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive easily." No formal transfer had taken place. No constitutional steps, no paperwork. William remained the Prince of Wales, not yet king. But a palace insider told Shooter that the institution was preparing emotionally, even if the paperwork hasn't caught up. And the same source added something striking. William was emphasis, already king unofficially in many ways. The public reaction was immediate and seismic. As NPR's Lauren Freyer reported from London, Britons were absorbing the extraordinary idea that His Majesty's police are investigating His Majesty's brother. There was shock, there was anger, and there was a dawning recognition that the monarchy had entered territory it had never navigated before. Prime Minister Keir Starmer was unequivocal, telling the BBC, "Nobody is above the law." He made clear that anyone with relevant information had a duty to come forward. Even President Trump weighed in from Air Force One, calling the situation very sad and so bad for the royal family. Inside the family, fault lines were deepening. Reports indicated that Princess Anne and Prince Edward offered Andrew private support, a subtle but notable counterweight to the institution's public distance. The tension between personal loyalty and institutional necessity, a tension the royal family has navigated imperfectly for decades, was playing out again. For William, the picture looked entirely different. He was increasingly seen as the stabilizing force, the one who had been right about Andrew, the one making strategic decisions without hesitation. Royal commentator Maureen Callahan, writing for the Daily Mail, put it plainly: Charles has all but handed over the crown, preferring to step away from crises that posed, in her words, existential threats to the future of the monarchy. William, she said, had no such squeamishness. What this story tells us goes beyond one family navigating one crisis. It tells us something about the nature of monarchy itself. Power in the British royal family has never passed in a single dramatic moment. It bleeds gradually from one generation to the next, while the appearance of continuity is carefully maintained. The institution bends. It does not break. What is happening between Charles and William is that process in motion. The Andrew crisis accelerated it, not because Charles is incapable, but because institutions under sustained pressure consolidate authority around whoever is best positioned to defend them. And right now, that person is William. There is also a deeper truth about the position Camilla now occupies. Not through personal scandal, but through circumstance. A king in uncertain health. A prince rising in authority. Palace under strain. She sits at the intersection of all three. History does not announce its turning points in advance. The British monarchy never confirms its most important transitions. It simply enacts them quietly, while saying publicly that everything remains exactly as it always was. So where does this leave us? King Charles remains on the throne. William remains the heir. No formal transfer, no abdication, no official announcement. And yet, the internal reality of the House of Windsor looks different now than it did a year ago. A king managing illness and crisis. A prince exercising authority before he has formally been given it. A monarchy under more pressure than it has faced in decades. The story is not over. It has barely begun. If this kind of honest, in-depth storytelling about what is really happening behind the palace walls is what you come here for, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because there is always more to uncover.